Evening, everybody, and welcome to this meeting of the Corporate Policy Development Committee. My name is Councillor George Courtauld, and I'm the chairman of this committee. We will now go through a few items of housekeeping. We're not expecting a fire alarm this evening, but should one sound, please can members use the exit to the rear of the chamber and assemble in the car park. Please can you make sure that your telephones and devices are switched to silent. If members wish to speak during our debates this evening, please can you indicate by raising your hand and I'll come to you at the appropriate time. Please can I remind everyone that this meeting is also being webcast. Please can I remind members to use their microphones when speaking and to switch them off when they finish speaking. I'll now proceed with the main business of the meeting. Agenda item 1, apologies for absence. We have received apologies from the following members: Councillor Mark Alt and Councillor Paul Thorogood. There are no further apologies. I will now proceed with agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Do members have any disclosable pecuniary interest, other pecuniary interest, or non-pecuniary interest that they wish to declare this evening? As there are no declarations, I will now proceed to item 3, minutes of the previous meeting. Members, we're asked to approve the minutes of the meeting which took place on the 3rd of December 2025. Please can I have a proposer to approve the minutes? Councillor Ramage, thank you. Please can I have a seconder? Councillor Garrett, thank you. All those in favour? Thank you, members. The minutes are approved. I need to sign them. Yeah?
Just sign the last page.
Agenda item 4, public question time. Members, as we have received no registered speaker for this evening's meeting, I will proceed with the next item of business, which is agenda item 5, waste review update. Members, the report for this evening is set out on pages 5 to 8 of your agendas. For this item, we are joined by Charlotte Payne, Head of Operations, Councillor Tom Cunningham, Cabinet Member for Transformation, the Environment and Customer Services, and Tanya Roberge, Marketing and Communications Manager. Thank you all for joining us. Oh, and Sherry Root, sorry, Sherry. Members, the topic of this report was previously identified as part of the call for topic submission process in 2025-26. Whilst it would be premature to conduct a scrutiny review at this stage, I, along with the other scrutiny chairman, considered it prudent to provide the committee with an update and give members the opportunity to understand the Council's communications plan for this important change in service delivery. Accordingly, members will be invited to ask their questions in relation to the report following the presentation. Charlotte, please could I ask you to begin with your presentation, unless Councillor Cunningham would like to say something first.
Mr. Chairman, thank you on your indulgence and just the briefest of introduction, and to say thank you again for inviting us here. As you say, Charlotte will go through presentation with the usual detail and knowledge that only she can provide on this matter, and also Sherry's here, and we've got Tanya to discuss the communication plan. We are now incredibly only a matter of weeks away after a long period of both decision and mobilisation from the rollout of the new waste service. And whilst we're finding colleagues in the north of the county border in Suffolk are approaching waste collection in the same way as we are, I think we find ourselves in a very positive position because of the lead time we've allowed ourselves, but also the commitment to that comprehensive informing and communicating strategy, which we spoke about from the outset in the early spring last year and have followed through in the months that have since followed. And obviously that is the basis for our presentation and our discussion today. Mr. Chairman, if it's okay with you, if Charlotte could run through all of her slides, if that's okay, and then have questions at the end, if that works with you, I think that would work extremely well with the informed experts sitting along either side of me. Thank you very much indeed.
Brilliant, thank you. Charlotte, can we have your presentation?
Thank you. Yes, good evening. The presentation today will provide some further detail on what is set out in the report. For this, I've gone all the way back to early 2025, which is when we started a public consultation, and we'll go through the different phases, briefly touch on the consultation, and then we split the communications up into separate phases after that, with phase 1 being from the point we made the decision at the 27th of May, Cabinet, through to phase 2 when we start providing details to residents about exactly how the changes are going to impact them. So during the consultation, which as I said started in January 2025, and throughout the entire communication process, we've made sure we've had emphasis on both the digital and non-digital update to residents, making sure that we use multi-channels. So as you can see from here, we've had newsletters, banners, we've used social media, and we've also made sure that we've had the Contact magazine and face-to-face engagements, which were through the consultation really successful. As you can see, nearly 1,000 leaflets and cards provided to make sure that people knew about the consultation and how to access it. We in the end received nearly 8,000 responses, which is a significant response rate, and the benefit of all of that meant that we had a really great evidence base in order to make suggestions and recommendations through to the decision in May. So throughout this presentation, I have sort of picked a few things to show, to identify and give examples of the communication that we did throughout the time. So this was through that consultation process, and you can see banners on railings to access people that aren't necessarily on social media, as well as on our vehicles that were running around the district throughout that time. And as you can see, the face-to-face engagement. We also had a good success rate in terms of e-newsletters, with 60% of people kind of clicking on that. So I didn't go into too much detail around the consultation, because I think much of it's then been focused on what happened since the decision that was made in May. So that's this phase 1 here. We wanted to have a focus on social media. It is important. We do get a lot of access, but as I mentioned earlier, it's not the only way that we wanted to communicate. So making sure we used the website, magazines that were already out there, and other things that were already easily accessible to us. We've also used newspapers. Councillor Cunningham has a column in one of the newspapers to make sure we can get information out as well. But you can see from the social media where we can identify that impact. You can see some of the numbers there in terms of the views that we were having. You can also see some of the key topics that we picked out. And again, those topics were very much focused around things that we learned through the consultation responses and through those ongoing engagements that we had face-to-face, through the conversations we were receiving through customer contact as well. So the comms plan throughout this has been ever-changing and iterative and learning as we go. It's never just been sort of focused in any one area. With that, making sure that we understood the resident responses, what they needed to understand, and focusing our approach on that. So again, a few more examples then of what that looked like in May. You can see our social media post that was really successful, and the FAQs on the website have been really important. We created a landing page, which is something I talked about really early on in this, and making sure that it was ever developing and being updated as well, and making sure that we can reduce the amount of inquiries that were coming in so people could self-serve wherever possible. And using things like the Within Reach magazine as well, so utilising communication channels that we already had, so we were accessing as many people as possible without having to spend lots of money repeating ourselves. That moved through into June, as taking those messages, trying to build trust post the consultation, trying to make sure that everybody was aware that we had taken those consultation findings and were learning from them. The consultation really was a key foundation to everything that we've delivered ever since, understanding what people's concerns were, how we could work on them, and how we could make sure we built this service with residents in mind. So things like the absorbent hygiene products, how we were going to build that, understanding people's ongoing reservations, and making sure that we could express how we could deal with those as we needed to. Then in July and August, we moved into more videos to try and explain some of those areas that people had concerns about. So we utilised things around odours, which were a concern for people, frequency of collections, AHPs, and trying to make those messages as simple as possible through easy to understand and see videos, as well as explaining the message around how much was in the bin at the moment that wouldn't be in the bin if it moved to the right. So if we moved out of grey into recycling. So utilising again the evidence base that we had right from the very beginning to try and explain those messages and really give residents an understanding of the why we were changing things. We also made sure wherever possible we utilised staff. You can see there's a video in the bottom corner that had some of our staff in it as well, our frontline staff who were rolling this out. So then we moved into phase 2. So that was getting us ready to start writing to residents and opening up the review process. So throughout all of this, as Councillor Cunningham said, we knew we wanted to make sure we were supporting residents at all points. So we built what was called a review process. So we assessed everybody's properties to make sure that the concerns around space were addressed, and then we gave all residents the opportunity to ask for a review of the criteria that we'd used. Not something I've seen necessarily provided by others, so I really do think this is another step beyond in terms of the support that we've provided to our residents. So leading up to that review process, we used the Contact magazine, which we received a lot of positive feedback from, because it was a 4-page spread in there that people could then take out and keep. We also, as well as focusing our communications externally, we knew that making sure internal communications were really clear was important. So we had member briefings regularly to make sure that members were up to date and also could continue to be advocates for this, taking it through to parishes as well. And so as well as going directly to residents, we were sort of sharing that message to others that can explain and answer questions for people as well. We also had internal communications through our staff who both work and live in the district, and also our staff that are going to be rolling this out. One of the key flagstones of this was us writing to everybody, every resident, in November 2025, and we will be doing something else again before the rollout. Again, something else that I think goes above and beyond what others have done. Writing to residents directly is a very expensive but very effective way of communicating with people, and we wanted to make sure it was bespoke and it was relevant, and it opened up that opportunity for people to have a review if they felt that they needed to. So making sure that everybody was aware that those letters were coming, making sure that people actually opened them because they can look like a circular. There was a lot of communication done to make sure that people understood what was going to land on their door and what that meant. And again, that was supported by a lot of social media posts around the topics that were coming up again and again. So just some examples of that. So through September, we still were utilising videos wherever we could, trying to get a lot of information out in a really easy to understand way. And you can see some of the the views that we had for that. We were continuing with face-to-face and school engagement, which is really important, trying to engage right from early years with residents. Through children, and you can see some of the Contact magazine content there as well that really did go well. Another thing I just want to raise, really early on there was a kind of a branding created around this, so the blue and the green, that we worked with colleagues in graphics who came up with that, and I think that's held true throughout all of this and has been really good in terms of making this successful and easy to see at any point what we're talking about and referencing back to that. So October, ongoing social media, as you can see, just going over those key messages, but also building on questions that were coming through and starting to share a bit more information about what would be going in the bins. And then we also did another member briefing and provided some member documentation as well around the review process, property assessments, what did that look like, and an FAQ document there. So again, trying to give as many people the information as possible so that we can support residents from all angles. So November was the letter finally starting to land, so social media ramped up around that. We started now to move into videos with people rather than the animated ones, and really starting to bring absolute clarity on where we were going, because we moved out of the theoretical now into the reality of things actually landing on people's doormats, making sure that we engaged with parishes as well. The website needed to be updated, providing support to our crews as well to make sure that they had postcards and information to provide to people on the doorstep should they have any questions. We also put a big poster up at Causeway House, again trying to interact with people through different ways. There was e-newsletters that were going out, again having really high successful open rates. And then December was when a lot of the letters started to land with people, so trying to work through easy to understand flowcharts around what does it mean, what do I need to do, I've got this letter, now what? And just trying to make sure that people didn't just get a letter and think, oh, I've got a letter, could actually then take that forward and utilise the review process as they needed to. And as you can see, some really good interactions and engagements from those. So in terms of a kind of a roundup, so that's 2025 in a snapshot, which was definitely a lot longer in reality. But I think what we can see through that time is how we've helped to develop that messaging from the early messaging in 2025, which was around the consultation and theory of this, through to the reality of what this is actually going to look like. We've seen through that where we've been able to give residents that information, and they've started to understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. And as I mentioned earlier, really important through this was making sure it was multi-channel. It can't just be digital, it can't just be social media. We have absolutely focused on utilising in-person, direct to the door, and messages, repeating key messages and learning from feedback that we're getting as well. We've made sure that milestones have been supported with communication wherever necessary, so around letters, decision points, and as we are right now around delivery processes as well. And making sure that we are looking at this across communities as well. None of this has ever been a one-size-fits-all. Everything that we've done through the decision-making process and how that would work, the review process, the comms, has been about looking at what we can do to support individuals as well as across wide-ranging communities. And as a result of that, we think that the residents are now well prepared for what's about to come and what is happening right now. So just to quickly touch on next steps, so what's 2026 got in store for us? So we continue to roll out our engagement plan. I haven't talked a lot about it, but there has been ongoing face-to-face across the district, whether that's with scout groups, school groups, community groups. We will continue to reach out and try and see if we can get to as many people as possible. We also attend market days and provide as much information as we can and answer key questions for people. We will continue to update the website, the landing page. You won't know it, but the tiles on there are changing constantly, relevant to what's going on. So you might click into it and it doesn't look any different, but actually we are changing that messaging constantly and making sure that the relevant information is easily accessible. There's always friendly URLs or friendly website links and QR codes to make sure that people are getting to the right information really quickly as well. This year we will have the rollout in June, but prior to that we committed to sending another letter to all residents in May, and included within that letter will be a printed calendar. So everybody will again get a bespoke letter that gives them all their information relevant to their address, and a calendar for the rest of the year as well, to really help support people to understand the changes. And we will continue to use messaging across newspaper, Contact magazine, and we will continue to make sure that those key milestones are really highlighted through communications, both, as I said earlier, externally, but also internally, whether that's with our own staff or with members as well, to make sure we all can continue to advocate for the benefits of this. Bin deliveries have commenced and they will continue to roll out, and we've got some work to do on our communal property engagement. For those that have asked many times, we are working through the absorbent hygiene product process at the moment and how to apply for that. That will be coming live shortly, and details around what that will look like. And then I also mentioned when we first talked about this that because of the changes, especially around Tetra Pak and glass, the bring banks will need a review. So through that process, we will make sure we look to see what other materials we can collect in the future, such as batteries and waste electricals, to make sure that we do everything we can to keep those materials outside of our vehicles, because they can cause extreme damage if they're put into the recycling. So doing everything we can to make sure the bring banks continue to be a really useful place for people to get rid of as much in the best way that they possibly can. And then happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Charlotte. Does anyone have any questions?
Oh, awesome is basically a word I'd like to put out there today, because I think the communication has been outstanding and the engagement with residents has been remarkable. So I think you should really pat yourselves on the back, the whole team, everybody. I think there will be issues, but I think you've done as much as you can to stem that through, as you say, the multifaceted approach to discussing this with residents. One of the things that I think is something that we could potentially enhance is the maths of this. So there's a podcast called Talking Rubbish, which is every week. I'm sure you're very au fait with it. And James is particularly interested in food waste, and that was on February the 11th one. Why that's interesting is because if people recycle food waste, then they recycle more other stuff. If you can do the dirty stuff and you can handle it well, then people will recycle more. The other thing, which was in podcast 77, is the gate price for treating that waste. And I know that's a difference between Braintree, which collects, and Essex County Council, which treats the waste. But the difference, and this is a UK average, to burn something is £121 a tonne on average. To put it in an aerobic digester to treat food waste is £21 a tonne. Now, I can quickly see that that's something that would grab people's attention and would be of high, big interest. And I know it starts to blur the edges between county and Braintree, but we're going towards a unitary, and I think we ought to be thinking big about this sort of stuff. And we ought to be putting some pressure on the incinerator operator to actually have an aerobic digestion plant, which is what they said was going to be in their original planning consent, and they've never done it. And certainly residents around Braintree will see stuff going in the incinerator and the plume coming out, and they may be disincentivised to recycle and do the right thing, and kind of say, two fingers up to that. So what we can do with the maths, I think we can really help people to say that we can save lots of money. It's material, the difference, and it's also a way of saying to people, look, if it doesn't go to Endeavour and the incinerator, and it costs less, let's do that thing. Let's do that thing, Braintree, and let's do the right thing. So that's what I wanted to talk about. Thank you.
Thank you for what you said at the beginning, and I think I just really want to get across as well. Everything I've talked about today has been an absolute joint effort across a number of areas, including the comms and marketing team and the graphics team have absolutely supported and been key to all of this. So I want to make sure that they're recognised on this. To your point around food waste, I think I mentioned around the evidence base that we gathered, and you'll remember from things that I presented before that really being graphic. We know that about 30%, about 30% is food waste, and one of the main drivers for the decision that was made to move to a 3-weekly collection is because when you took out all the things that shouldn't be in that grey bin, then you don't need to collect it any more frequently than that. So I think that's probably going to be our biggest driver, but I completely agree on the money point, and we have stressed that. And I think to the point around it blurring between us and county, I don't think that it does. We signed up to the waste strategy in September 2024, which is a whole Essex, whole system. And I think the waste system as a whole, with everything that's going on at the moment around new policies coming forward, is very much about a whole system approach with extended producer responsibility, with the deposit return scheme. We can't just look at this anymore as a collection disposal, and with unitary as well coming around the corner, it certainly isn't. So we certainly haven't been looking at it like that for the last couple of years, and we won't do anything other than to continue to look at this as a whole system. And everything we've talked about today in terms of the communication is about taking what we're passionate about in terms of doing the right thing and achieving better recycling rates, and making it relevant to every resident in terms of what they do and how it's going to work easier for them, hopefully.
Councillor Garrett.
Thank you, Chairman. I went to a parish council meeting last week and was surprised that I had questions about what goes in each bin, because I asked residents if they had their new bins delivered, which they had, and I still had questions about what do I do with my cat litter, what do I do with my absorbent products. So I said, well, there has been a social media campaign, but there'll be more information coming out soon. And these elderly residents said, well, I don't do social media. And it boiled down to the fact that I could probably get them to read the parish magazine. So I was going to ask, with your calendar, or not with your calendar, but if you could send out to perhaps parish councils and district councillors a little poster that I can forward to the parish magazines with the facts on them, the FAQs, about what do I do with my cat litter, what do I do with my absorbent products, and what goes in the blue bin and what goes in the red bin. Because I know that you've done all this amazing work and I've seen it, and I was surprised to get these questions. But I think some people have thought, oh, actually it's not happening till June, so I don't need to think about it. So I wanted to ask you if there would be another campaign in, obviously, May, and how we can reach those more difficult to reach people, particularly the older people who don't really look at the social media. So with your calendars, would you be sending out information about which goes into each bin, another factual information? Because I'm just a bit concerned that although people know it's coming, they're still not engaging. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I didn't mention it, but there's been a deliberate, so in those different phases we talked about, there is the next phase is about that kind of what goes in each bin. We deliberately haven't talked too much about it. The Contact magazine did have a pullout that did have what was going in there, and there's a couple of reasons why we haven't, but one of them is if we focus too much right now on all the details around what's going to go in them, when they turn up, which they are now, people will start using them. So the next phase of talking to people about what exactly is going to go in those bins is deliberately planned for like the next few weeks, months, ready to roll into June. So we have things planned, like more things on the, more banners on the trucks will be coming out. The letter that goes out, that we call Letter 2, that has the leaflet. On the calendar, it will have details of what goes in there. There'll also be a separate leaflet that's kind of an introduction to your new service as well. So there's a lot more content going in that letter than just the letter itself. We have and we will continue to share information to parishes. So I think we sent a poster round to councillors and parishes very recently about the bin deliveries. We are committed to continuing to do that and keep sharing. June is a deadline, the date in which this starts, but the communication will not stop then. This is an ongoing thing. We know from evidence, and if you just roll it out and stop, we're not going to get any better than we are right now. So we just got to keep going, constantly sharing messages and learning. So everything I've talked about today about that ongoing learning, we will continue to do in the years to come. And similarly, everything I've talked about today in terms of that social media and non-digital communication package will continue. So I think everything we've done now has shown that commitment to not just being social media led, and that will continue. So I think it doesn't surprise me that some people might not know the intricacies of what needs to go in each bin, but when they do get their bins, hopefully there's quite an interesting pattern on the top that gives them a bit of an idea about what needs to go in each one as well. So if all else fails, that should give them the key information.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Councillor Finkin.
Chair. Yes, I would agree with Councillor Staines and Councillor Vera that it was an extremely good strategy, and it's all been followed through very well. Communications has been excellent. Obviously, looking on social media, which I do look at, and local newspaper websites and even national now have focused on Braintree, there are a lot of negative and hostile comments. And I wondered what you thought the extent of that was, whether they're coming directly to the council as well, or are they just on social media, and how you're dealing with them. Thank you.
I think social media often is tinged towards the more negative. So from the face-to-face engagement that we have, we actually see more of a split the other way, where we see more positive and more people saying, I'm really pleased to see glass is going to be collected and plastic film, etc. So we did know that some people weren't going to be happy with this. We did the public consultation, we learned from that, and we knew that not everybody was going to be happy. But what we also knew is that we had that ambition. We wanted to make sure that we supported people to be able to access this service in the easiest way. The review process was very much key to that, and making sure that we gave people the access to be able to put a review in if they needed to. So I'm really confident that in terms of functionality of the service, it's absolutely where it should be. But potentially we do know that people are going to feel that they don't like it to begin with. We hope that that will potentially see a change once it's actually in place. But I think Sherry might have something to add as well.
So I think the focus has been around recognising when people aren't happy, that we accept that there will be some people that aren't happy. We will also tackle any opinion with facts, and if there is any mis or disinformation that comes through in any of those social media or media posts, articles, then we will go back and tackle that. So, and I think we've been quite proactive, Tanya, haven't we, in doing that as we've gone through. So just focusing on facts, just trying to keep making sure that we continue to reiterate why we're doing this, why it's important, but recognising that there will be a core of people that it actually doesn't matter what we say, they're not going to be happy with what the outcome is.
Councillor Parker.
Thanks, Chair. I've got a few questions. I mean, I endorse everything that has been said about the process for bringing this forward, and hopefully residents will find that once they start it, actually will be quite happy with it. So just questions. So first of all, on your letter that's going to go out in May, could I suggest that you explain to people what happens to what's left in the black bin? Because am I right in thinking it all now gets incinerated? So if you put anything like a pair of shoes, old shoes, in the black bin, that's going to be going to the incinerator. And I think possibly it might. I don't think people realise that that things are going to be incinerated. And the second thing is on side waste. So. Certainly I had a conversation with somebody the other day who was concerned about the fact that the paper and card was only going to be collected every 3 weeks, because they seem to get a lot of deliveries from Amazon with all the boxes and everything. So if it could be made clear to people that, you know, you are going to only have those paper and card collected every 3 weeks, and you will not be collecting any side waste. Because I suspect there might be quite a lot of people who will still put the boxes out with all the boxes inside and so on. So the other thing's just on. So I've had my bin delivered, which is great. All fine. The only thing is the lid is twisted, and I don't know whether you've had this problem with other people. We've tried to untwist the lid to an extent, but it is the lid that's going to receive the paper and cards. So perhaps you could, well, I mean, I'd quite like to know what you would like as a service for those defective lids. And then finally, just I mean, I think the main sort of feedback I've had, people who aren't happy, is that they've got small gardens and are suddenly going to find gardens occupied by 4 or 5 bins. The only thing I would say is that I did sort of think at the time when we had all the members' meetings back in November that the sort of issue of space was going to be addressed. But when that letter came out, it was only if you're only going to be eligible for boxes, I think, if you've got steps. It was very restrictive, or you have to bring the bins through your house. I think there was another reason as well. I think there were only 3 reasons, but it didn't. Having a small garden was not one of them. So because I'd actually been telling people that space will be taken into account. So I'm not sure it was to an extent. And then finally, just on the social media, I know that Braintree District Council now is using Nextdoor. So I think people who are not on the Facebook, and which I personally absolutely hate Facebook, but they do tend to, some of those older people do tend to have signed up to Nextdoor, probably because they can't work out how to unsign it. But it is quite a useful tool, I think, and presumably you've been using that as well, as much as everything else. Thanks. A lot of questions, sorry.
So to your point around explaining where, I think on the leaflet where we're talking about introducing the service, we'll definitely have a look at that and making sure everybody understands why we're separating it and where things go, including anything left in the grey bin will be incinerated, so we'll take that. So just on the side waste and the blue and red bins, they're collected every 4 weeks intermittently between each other. You mentioned 3, so I just want to clarify that it's 4. So side waste, so the paper and card has to be dry, which I'll come back to in terms of the lid. So if cardboard is left, when we get to the cardboard and it's wet, we will not collect it. And we will be, as I mentioned earlier, our next phase of communications is very much about what goes in the bin and what we will collect. So that will be ramped up in the next set of communications to make it very clear to people what we will collect and what we won't. To the lids, so the bins started to be manufactured quite a while ago, and they're all stacked in 13s, and when they're stacked, some of the lids can slightly warp whilst they're stacking. We have been assured by the manufacturers that when they're down and when we finally get some sun, they will unwarp quite simply on their own. That said, if they don't, for any reason, they are going to replace the lids. So we will replace them if people want to, but we're kind of asking if people just give it a little bit of time for it to settle down, because we've got time now between now and June anyway. They should be fine, and if they're not, then we will absolutely replace them, because as you say, I don't want to sit here and say we'll only collect dry paper and card and then give people bins where the lids aren't securing them. So I'm confident, and somebody has already said to me, oh yeah, it did settle down quite quickly. But in the meantime, what we have asked is our delivery crews to be a little bit more vigilant and maybe not deliver bins whilst they do still have that warp, and wait for them to settle. So wherever possible, we're going to stop delivering those, but the odd 1 or 2 might get through. But just to reassure, they will sort themselves, or we will sort them. In terms of the review process, we did say that we would look at space and small gardens, but it wasn't just going to be small gardens on its own as a reason not to have it, because if you take away the bins and you put 8 boxes in, the space in terms of footprint taken is the same. So to say that you don't need a bin but you could have a box, we're not really going to be doing anybody any favours to swap that out. And in some cases, as we saw through the review process, when they realised it was a bin or a box, or a bin or 4 boxes, they were, I'd rather have a bin anyway. But I appreciate that storage, it can be difficult for people, but we do need to make sure that they're stored securely, and it would seem that it's probably better in some ways than storing lots of bags, as people are currently as well. And as to Nextdoor, I believe we're using it already.
We are using Nextdoor, and the benefit of Nextdoor is that you can target, so we can do individual messages to different areas. So we are using it, and we will continue to use it.
Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chairman. In today's BBC article, it states that Basildon Council has gone the other way, and that presents a message that we've done something deliberate and there was some choice. And I think Cherry touched on this earlier. Let's go back to the core principle of why we're doing this. I think let's just emphasise the fact that I think it was largely legislative changes that has led us down this path, and we're responding, sooner we're ahead of the game effectively compared to other local authorities. So I just think, you know, in terms of the messages, I endorse everything that's been said by the members, but can we just go back to explain why we're doing this?
Yes, so we have written back to the BBC about some of their inaccuracies around some of their reporting today. So I think their reference to Basildon is that Basildon have chosen to go to weekly collections for their refuse rather than 3 weekly like we have. That's a decision that they've made. The decision that we made was based on, as I mentioned earlier, the evidence base that we had, especially around the waste compositions, which we've done twice now, which shows that way over 50% of what's in that grey bin shouldn't be in there. It should be in your food. It should be in what will be your red and your blue bin. And as was mentioned earlier about, if it's not, it will be burnt. So we're absolutely doing this to build on our ambitions to make sure we recycle as much as possible. The target is 60% by 2035. We're not even at 50% at this point. That's a huge shift to have to make. The food waste, when we first put this through, if we moved the food waste out, it's 15% on its own just to get food waste there. And one of the driving factors of making sure people put food waste in their food bins is that if not, you will put it in a 3 weekly collection, which isn't the best thing to do. It should be going to an AD plant for money, for environmental reasons. It's one of the food waste decomposing is one of the worst climate emissions that you have. So getting it to an AD plant where it becomes food recycling. So I won't know if you've seen it, but we made a conscious effort through this communication process to stop calling it food waste. So all of the messages now, we're calling it food recycling, because this is about recycling and making that food turn into something better. It captures the methane, it makes a fertiliser, and it's a much better thing than it going and being burnt. So the reason we're doing this is kind of manifold. There is a financial benefit, there is absolutely a carbon and an environment benefit, and we do think it's the right thing to do for our residents to support them into the future as well.
Councillor Radley.
So you just, thank you, Chair. You just mentioned that any wet cardboard won't be collected. So I hope it's not a silly question, but when you have those large TV boxes and you have sofas in really big cardboards and you store it or you put it outside for collection, if it rains, it gets wet. Now it gets collected. Like we had 2 big boxes and unfortunately where we left it, it got wet because it rained. It was collected, but you said in future it won't. So how would residents store them? Where would they keep them so it doesn't get wet and be collected? Or are they expected to kind of break it down and then put it in the bins? Is that how it is going to be?
Absolutely. So so the reason we say we can't collect wet cardboard is because where it be going now, because we've taken the decision along the lines of the legislative requirements that paper and card needs to be collected separately. It will go to a paper mill. And the paper mill will give us a better return. So in terms of what you were mentioning earlier around the maths around this, you'll get much better value because it's a much better quality material. It can now be recycled and get really good material back out of it. Wet cardboard will then, or wet anything in a truck, creates moisture. And the paper mills will reject a load that is too wet, because one of the main reasons for that is moisture in paper and card, when it is then piled in the tons and tons that it is, becomes a combustible. So it's actually at risk of all going up in flames, and that's why paper mills don't take wet paper and card. So we're doing it for very practical reasons, and then as residents what we're asking is you will have a big 240 litre wheelie bin. Those exceptional purchases that most people will make every now and then, we're asking that people do break them down and put them in their wheel bin. It might take maybe a couple of collections for them to do it. They also have the option to go to a recycling centre. Also, with changes that are coming, we're still waiting for some feedback from the government, but with places like, I don't want to name any, but electrical companies that sell you things, they're going to have a responsibility to take things like packaging and other waste electrical materials back. So actually when you're purchasing something, they should take that material away for you as well. So we're very much focused on the ordinary, what is a household collection, what do we have on the everyday, and then those exceptions, we do need people to take responsibility to either break it down or make a trip to the recycling centre to get it collected and dealt with that way.
Thank you.
Councillor Staines.
Thank you, Chair. On the news tonight, there's a reported increase in fly tipping across the UK, and what we don't want, I guess, is people recycling in the countryside and expecting us to pick it up, because everything that we pick up, put in a pink bag, goes straight to the incinerator, doesn't pass go, doesn't collect £200. And whatever we can do to encourage folks to recycle properly is a really good thing, and to make it as easy as possible. I think this is part of the way through, but I know that certain villages have been more proactive than others in collecting things like mattresses and big items that people who haven't necessarily got cars or couldn't get stuff to a recycling centre themselves have got an option. I know they can call it in and get it collected. So they, those big items, and they're relatively low cost. But if we could advertise that as well, I think that would be good, because like you say, it's a holistic approach, and fly tipping is one end of the spectrum, incinerators in the other, and if we can kind of say, well, the less we send to the incinerator is good, and if we recycle more, the less it's going to end up on the verges of our roads, that would be great as well. Thank you.
Just very quickly, because I think we're steering off of the topic of tonight, but just to confirm that as part of this review, we have looked at our bulky waste collection as well, to make sure that that's as useful for residents as possible. So we'll be hopefully rolling out some more communications around that, and a new change to that from April. Fly tipping is illegal for people. It's not an excuse because of any changes that we make for people to fly tip, and we have teams that work to make sure that we address that and take action wherever we possibly can. So I take your point, and we do offer bulky waste collections, and as I mentioned earlier, there is a bigger emphasis going on to not only producers but your online shopping places, for them to take big bulky items like mattresses and electrical items away when you buy a new one. So hopefully that will see behaviour, but ultimately the behaviour of each individual is to make sure that they dispose of their waste appropriately.
Can I just add to that? And absolutely, and some very good points being made there. I think it's indicative that the communication strategy to the communities will not end on implementation in the first week of June. This is going to be a considerable transition of routine for all our residents, and we totally appreciate that. And I think some of the points have been made actually give a clear steer of some things that we will continue to give the appropriate attention to. Absolutely, fly tipping, that is a concern. We did have similar concerns, there were similar concerns expressed when the new all-year-round garden subscription service came in. In that sense, those fears were not realised, thankfully. But we've had obviously a good conversation tonight about the card and the paper, and what do you do when you have a particularly high amount of that. I think that's something that perhaps we'll need to do around the Christmas period, just in terms of helping residents prep for that, when we all have disproportionate amounts of cardboard and paper coming from all directions. So I think this is all very, very good stuff to help inform the next stages of the communication strategy and post implementation. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Ramage, you had a finger up.
Thank you very much. I'm kind of coming from a different direction with what everybody else is asking, as far as with the initial finding out from residents how they're going to deal with their bins. Have you come across major problems like in apartment blocks, that sort of thing, how they're going to deal with recycling and that sort of thing? Because I've had a few residents showing concern in that respect. How are we going to do this with all these bins or whatever? Another thing is, I think I asked this at the members' evening regarding training of the staff who are dealing with this. They're front and forward with the residents. Have you got them all fully trained up to deal with all the issues that probably be coming along? Because obviously, they're their first contact as far as the residents are concerned, and it's important that they know what they're talking about as such, And And also, following that, will you have a designated customer service troubleshooting sort of staff to deal with all the everyday issues that people will be probably asking? Because as in anything new, there's, especially with the greatest respect, the elderly, that they find it difficult for changing, and it's important they have a friendly voice on the end of the phone to know how to resolve their issues. One other, what was the other point? As far as the budget for this, the costing and everything, is it all on schedule as far as you're concerned? You know, because I can't remember the figure now, but obviously it's going to be costing a considerable amount of money for the council to deal with all this, including the bins and what have you. Is that sort of all on you know, is it all on schedule as far as the costings and that is concerned? Thank you.
Yes, so communal properties, flats generally, and flats above shops are definitely a tricky area. So that, again, the sector collection authorities as a whole do see a lot of problems as to how to roll these kind of changes out. We wrote to all of the managing agents that we have details for a couple of weeks ago, so we're now engaging directly with them, with some of our housing associations as well, to work through what it needs to look like. As I mentioned earlier, it's not a one-size-fits-all, and communal properties in particular, we need to understand what they need in terms of how many properties they've got, size of bin stores, what that looks like. So that is something we're working on right now, and at the same time we write to everybody else. In May, we'll be writing to each of the communal property residents to let them know exactly what that's going to look like for
Could
them.
I just interject there? What about businesses as well? I forgot to mention that.
Okay. In terms of communal as well, one of the other things we did that I gave an update on is we did a trial on food waste collections. So one of the key things to introduce to them is food waste collections, and we trialled that, and we feel that we've got a really good way to roll that out. So we've learned from that, and we'll be utilising that. Training for staff and crews, we are absolutely on. We speak to them regularly. We're actually going to see them again on Friday morning. We are training them. We're training them, but also I'm not expecting them to answer questions at the door. So what we're doing instead is we're providing them information to be able to share immediately with residents, to say, actually, there's somebody else that can have that conversation with you, and let them get on with their rounds. We did that when we sent the letters out. We've given them some of those for the bin deliveries. We'll continue to do that, so they've got a really easy way to share that information with residents. But that said, they will also understand what's going on. In terms of designated customer contact, yes, we've been working with our colleagues in customer contact. There is an increase in capacity that's been put in to support this. We're also working with them and our waste minimisation team and our comms colleagues and lots of other different service areas. Everybody is being given the same information at the same time, so that anybody can answer questions at any point, and making sure that there's consistency around that. But to your point around, yes, there's always going to be somebody available either on the phone or in person to answer questions. Absolutely. Which is exactly what I'm kind of here to show how we've done that already, and we will continue to do that, continue to communicate, utilising the FAQs on the website, but then making sure that they're then available for people on the phone as well, so you don't have to access the website to have that same information. The FAQs that we create on the website are the ones that we also give our colleagues in customer contact, our waste minimisation team. Everybody's talking from the same hymn sheet on that. Budget's on track, yeah, we monitor that in our monthly project meetings. Commercial waste, so commercial and trade waste is a separate entity. We do offer it, but not everybody has to take it from us. Their legislative changes came in a year earlier, so they came in 2025. We're working with those businesses that wanted to continue to work with us to have separate food, recycling, paper and card collections, and we'll continue to do that as we move forward as well.
Councillor Jeffries, you had a question.
Thank you. And I think as well as the awesome Councillor Staines said about the communication, it's also been really good communication with members, I think, to keep us informed and be able to if not answer all the questions, at least have some idea. As Councillor Garrett said, you know, we do get quite a few questions about it, and we know the people to pass them on to. If anybody, I know people have mentioned the BBC today. It seems to have been all about waste today. And one of the particular films was about food waste, and I was lucky enough to be watching it when I had my breakfast and when I was having my dinner tonight. But it's quite graphic, but it does really show the point of recycling food waste. So I thought that was quite good. Obviously, not all members and officers have been far too busy today to have seen it, but it's worth looking back on. As you know, I did put forward a topic earlier about lithium batteries and the safe disposal of batteries, and I know you mentioned it, and I know it's not really part of this, but if we can continue to consider the batteries, and it might be something that, you know, comes a bit later on, but again, they are a risk. As you can see, this is what can happen with scooters, and I have another graphic of actually how many batteries we might have in our houses, and so we've got to dispose of them somewhere, and if they go in the general waste they can combust and cause problems. So it is an issue not to be forgotten about, I think. Thank you.
Councillor Bond.
Thank you, Chairman. I live in a communal area of elderly people who are expecting some more information about when the rollout might be for the communal waste. We appreciate the priority, of course, has to be the bigger number. And it's interesting that we're often characterised, elderly people, as those who can't access these sorts of communications. I think it's almost 95% of those residents are perfectly capable of receiving that and have done so, and now are asking me. Now they're more anxious because they know that this is happening, but they feel they're not sure how it's happening for them. And it's not a criticism, because they understand, but actually, even if it's a rollout date that might be helpful for communal areas generally, and I'm using mine as an example, that will be really helpful. But as I say, they've found your communication by whatever means that you sent it, including the letters. Those cause more confusion than the Facebook pages, to be perfectly honest. Thank you.
Any more questions? Oh, Ron. Councillor.
Regarding the delivery of the new bins, are you sort of working from the north downwards, or how's that working? And also, when you deliver them, people come home from work, say, and they've got these bins on, will you be putting a leaflet through the door explaining why they're there? I mean, because people might not necessarily know they're coming.
So we're kind of working from the north, as it's been explained to me. We're kind of like almost circling in a little bit, so working north and around the rural, and then we end up in Braintree. So yeah, we have started in north. Yes, we started in north, and then we'll kind of come around and come back down. So we aren't providing leaflets with the bins for a couple of reasons. One, there isn't anywhere to put them. We had a whole big conversation about this a few months ago, and there is an opportunity for litter if we just tried to like put them in the top as well. And also, we believe with the significant communication that we've done that there should be, including having written to everybody, sort of landing on people's doorsteps November, December, that 95+% of people should know about it, and then anybody who doesn't, and then it turns up on their doorstep, then hopefully we'll ring and ask the question. But I'd be surprised if nobody knows anything about them at this point. Absolutely, yeah. I'm not aware of anybody yet who's gone, what is this? I know nothing about it. So hopefully that shows that we have been successful in people being aware. Yeah.
Charlotte, can I ask a question? The bins have just arrived in the Cones ward, and it seems to have sparked quite a few questions, including some people who were amazed that they'd arrived at all. So some people aren't listening, but I think it's been brilliant communication and the system seems fantastic. But I wondered whether it would, I think looking at all the questions we've had this evening, it would probably worth us maybe having an update at some point. When is the logical time for you to update us? Because obviously we don't want an update if nothing's happened. But I mean, would sort of sometime in June be a good time, or when do you think?
I think we might be busy in June, probably just sorting out. So I think maybe, I don't know when your next one is, whether July or you probably won't have one in August.
You reckon, Jess?
I think we have a meeting in, I'll look up the dates, but we may have one in October time.
So October might be good on the basis that I mentioned earlier about waste composition. So we did one piece of waste composition in November 24, we did one in September 25. We're planning on doing a third set in September 26. So I may have some early findings of that by the time we get there. And the idea being that we can track kind of before we spoke to anybody, when we told people about the changes, and then post the changes. So I might be able to not only talk about communications, but the rollout, and potentially we might have some numbers at that point around impact and whether or not we've seen it, even though that'd be really early. So that would feel...
Yeah, just to confirm, there is a meeting in August, but I think that might still be a bit soon. So the next meeting's on the 21st of October.
So, yeah, if that works for everybody else.
Thank you. Well, I think we'd like to include that, if that's okay. If there are no further questions, can I take it that the report has been noted? We're about to have a show of hands for that before I thank Charlotte and everybody else. Thank you. The report is noted. Charlotte, thank you very much for the whole. Thank you all for the whole thing. It's actually quite fun to have some tangible thing to talk about with our voters. Councillor Cunningham, Charlotte and Tanya, thank you for your attendance this evening and responses to our questions. And Sherry, sorry, I keep forgetting you're there. We have one further item on the agenda, but do leave now if you'd like to. So we will now proceed with the next item of business, agenda item 6, the decision planner. Members, the report for this item is set out on pages 9 to 10 of the agenda and concerns the decision planner for the period 1st of March 2026 to the 31st of May 2026. Do members have any comments or questions in respect of the decision planner?
I do, Chair, but you've asked the relevant people to now leave, but I do notice that there is, on the 16th of March, to seek approval for the implementation of fixed penalty notices for breaches of household waste-related requirements. And
they're not here.
They're not here now.
They've gone.
They've gone.
Councillor Garrett, perhaps if I can take a note of that, and would you like me to raise that?
I would have liked a little bit more about information about that, considering that this is about waste in general.
So, sorry, could you just repeat which item that was for?
It is on the 16th of March. But I guess we're just going to have to wait until that comes up for debate at Cabinet to see.
Is that policy? So I haven't got it in front of me.
It just says decision for Section 46 of the Environmental Protection Act 1990. So do you want the reference number DP/2026/01 to seek approval for the implementation of fixed penalty notices for breaches of household waste related requirements?
Thank you. I've got a note of that.
Sorry, Councillor Garrett. Are there any other questions?
Chair,
yes.
There's a kind of implies here about, I mean, going forward into the new year, are we looking at to find new subjects to scrutinise?
Yeah, so for the subject that came forward tonight was one of the topics that was put forward as part of the call for topics last year. It's too premature to conduct a full scrutiny review into the topic at the current time because it's all still being rolled out. Obviously, post-August, post-June, I beg your pardon, we could potentially look at that as again, and then we'll have
I'm thinking of other subjects as well.
Yeah, so there will be another call.
Will we have
out.
the opportunity to put things suggested going forward?
Yes, yeah. So
that'll be for the new year as such, won't it?
Well, the new year will be probably post the election period, that's coming up as well.
So people need to start thinking. Okay.
Members, if there are no further questions, we've been asked to note the report. Please, can I take it that the report has been noted? Can I have a show of hands? Thank you, members. The report has been noted. Members, this item concludes our business for this evening. The next scheduled meeting of the Corporate Policy Development Committee is due to take place on Wednesday, the 15th of April. I look forward to seeing you there. I'd like to thank all those who watched the meeting this evening online. I will now close this meeting of the Corporate Policy Development Committee at 8:20. Thank you all for your attendance and have a good evening.